6 months ago, I was just Michelle, the woman in IT who quietly fixed broken printers and patched up every glitch, the one no one noticed until something went wrong. I arrived before sunrise each day, the soft hum of servers greeting me as I logged in, making sure every line of code ran flawlessly. I was the backbone of the company, yet to most, I was invisible, a ghost in the cubicles, a name rarely spoken. My sister, Ashley, started working there because I vouched for her. I pulled every string I could, wrote glowing recommendations, and personally guided her through her first projects. I watched with joy as she mastered the software, impressed the executives, and climbed the ladder faster than anyone dared hope. But everything changed the moment she grew close to the CEO's son. Suddenly, I found myself shut out of meetings I'd organized, my emails lost in cyber limbo, and the initiatives I'd led handed off to other teams with no credit given. Then came the most devastating blow. One crisp morning, I was summoned to the HR office. The manager, a college friend of Ashley's, greeted me with a practiced smile as she slid a termination letter across the desk. "Michelle," she said softly but coldly, "it's for the good of the company. It's nothing personal." But it was personal. My own sister had accused me of misusing company data, and without hesitation, they stripped me of my access badge. Ashley's expression was impassive, as though she were doing a mundane chore, not severing my career and reputation. I stepped out through the glass doors, head bowed, while the security guard clicked my badge back to me as if returning a simple ID card. They watched me, my sister, my boss, and my supposed best friend, Todd, smirking like they'd just won a prize. But inside me, something ignited, a spark of triumph that quickly blazed into a plan they would never see coming. Because while they celebrated their victory, I revealed my true hand. 5 years ago, I founded a separate venture under a shell corporation, quietly developing advanced cybersecurity tools. I poured every saved penny and every profit from freelance gigs into that venture. Piece by piece, hidden behind layers of proxies and anonymous investment vehicles, I acquired shares of the very company that now believed it had cast me aside. And just a week before my dismissal, I finalized the deal. My shell company legally owned 72% of the firm. I watched them plot, betray, and exclude me, savoring every moment as they unknowingly built their own downfall. 2 days later, the office was ablaze with celebration. They hosted a lavish party, champagne fountains, a DJ spinning upbeat tracks, colleagues dancing under glittering lights. Ashley floated through the crowd in an exquisite designer gown, her laughter ringing like a bell. Todd raised his glass to new beginnings, oblivious to the reckoning on its way. Meanwhile, I quietly marked my calendar for the most important meeting of their lives, 7:01 p.m. that very night. At precisely 7:01, I sent a summons to every senior executive, an emergency board meeting under my real name. Confusion rippled through the company. Why would the board call a meeting without the acting leadership's approval? Whispers turned to astonished murmurs when the agenda revealed itself, an ownership review. Todd exchanged a nervous glance with Ashley, whose confident posture faltered for the first time. I entered the boardroom with calm purpose, every eye flicking to the woman they thought was gone. The CEO, our uncle, leaned forward, disbelief etched on his face. "Michelle," he rasped, voice shaking, "how are you here?" I strode to the head of the table and settled into the chair as though I'd been waiting there all along. I slid a heavy folder across to the board's lawyer. "These documents," I said softly, "might clarify your confusion." Silence stretched until the lawyer gingerly opened the folder. Page by page, the proof unfurled, signed certificates, legal filings, evidence of my controlling stake. Gasp after gasp filled the room. Ashley's face drained of color, tears welled in her eyes as she stared at the pages, her betrayal laid bare. Todd's hand trembled, and the champagne flute he held slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. In that moment, the triumvirate understood the devastating truth. They hadn't fired a lowly technician, they had exiled the true owner. While they reveled in their petty politics, I had orchestrated the ultimate coup. They believed they had forced me into oblivion, but in reality, they had handed me the reins of power. Rising from my chair, I looked each of them in the eye and spoke the words they never expected to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your new roles as my employees." The weight of those words settled into the stunned silence, and I savored the sweetest victory I had ever known. The boardroom lay in stunned silence. The lawyer's voice trembled as he read the headline figures aloud. Sinnott Global Holding Company, 72% ownership. Sole controlling interest, Michelle Edwards. Every pair of eyes swung toward me, the woman they'd so casually dismissed just hours before. Ashley's whisper ran like ice through the room, "This can't be real. He's just an IT guy." I met her gaze, voice steady. "Correction, I was your IT support. Today, I'm the reason your paychecks exist." Murmurs rippled among the board members. Their veiled alliances and betrayals were exposed under the harsh glow of the overhead lights. The CEO, our uncle, rose, fists clenched at the mahogany table. "You manipulated us. You went behind our backs." I leaned forward, every syllable measured. "No. I played by the same rules you taught me. You just never believed the so-called loser could outplay you." Ashley's face drained of color. Todd's eyes flickered with a shameful guilt. Uncle remained rigid, as though his thoughts had short-circuited. I let the charged hush hang between us, each heartbeat a reminder that they had just handed power to the one person they tried so desperately to destroy. Finally, Mr. Clark cleared his throat. "Michelle, are you telling us you acquired shares in secret, over 5 years, while we ignored you?" I nodded once, firmly. 5 years of quiet, while you mocked me, overlooked me, pushed me aside. I was buying the company, one share at a time. Ashley's palm slammed the table. "This is insane. You were invisible. How could you do all this without anyone noticing?" I held her gaze, unflinching. "While you chased titles, I built an empire." The board lawyer confirmed the documentation, legal, valid, irreversible. Then I delivered the second strike. "I'm not just taking control, I'm restoring integrity." I slid a second folder across the table, thick with evidence. Manipulated financial reports, illicit email chains, transactions doctored to benefit certain insiders. Ashley's name topped the list. In one frantic motion, she seized the folder, flipping through pages with trembling fingers. "You're doing this out of jealousy," she cried. I rose slowly, voice calm but steel-edged. "No. I'm doing this because you betrayed me, and because you are a liability to this company." Todd stood, voice cracking. "Michelle, friends, please, don't do this." I turned to him, pain and resolve mingling in my expression. Friends don't betray each other for a quick promotion. You could have walked away. Instead, you chose to join them. His lips parted, but no words came. The board had no choice, my majority stake granted full voting power. Within minutes, Ashley lost her directorship, Todd relinquished his committee seats, and our uncle was stripped of day-to-day authority. I reached into my jacket pocket and withdrew 3 sealed letters. "Consider these your final severance packages, with all benefits intact, as required by law." I handed one to Ashley, one to Todd, and one to our uncle. Ashley's voice cracked. "You can't do this. You can't just erase us." I met her tear-filled eyes, voice soft but unyielding. "You fired me to protect yourselves. Now, I'm simply returning the favor." With that, I turned on my heel and strode from the boardroom, every head bowed in respect, shock, or regret. As I reached the door, I paused and spoke over my shoulder. "By the way, that company retreat in Bali, next month? Still happening. Just without you." Their stunned faces stared after me, mouths agape. I closed the door behind me, heart pounding with triumph and sorrow, believing it was over. But in the silent hum of the corridor, I heard the echo of footsteps, urgent, determined. What they did next changed everything. I thought I'd won. I was about to discover how far they were willing to go. 3 days later, the first ominous sign arrived as a silent phone call. I answered to nothing but an empty line and a faint click before the call ended. My heart thudded, but I brushed it off as a prank. Then the emails began, anonymous, seething threats and baseless accusations of fraud, each subject line more menacing than the last. "You'll regret crossing us. we know your secrets, your empire will fall. At first, I told myself it was just noise, an echo of office politics gone mad. But when I returned home one evening, I found my front door ajar. Inside my condo, nothing was missing, except my laptop was open, files scrolled across the screen as though someone had been searching for something. Adrenaline coursed through me as I checked the security footage. The intruder swiped in with my old keycard, the same one I'd used back when I was just the IT girl. Only 2 people still had access, Ashley and Todd. Anger flared, but I refused to let fear consume me. I pieced together what had happened since I'd ousted them from the company. Ashley, desperate to claw back her fortune, had tried to found her own tech startup, using stolen proprietary code and doctored reports. But investors, wary after a routine background check, recoiled at her scandalous past, and she was left penniless and blacklisted. Todd, equally ruined, had crawled to every rival firm begging for a chance, but the whispers of his betrayal had preceded him, shutting every door in his face. They blamed me for their ruin, convinced I'd leaked their misdeeds. Now they were plotting a final, devastating blow. That blow came at our annual shareholder meeting, my first as majority owner. The conference hall buzzed with excitement, projections soared, the balance sheet gleamed in crisp charts, and congratulations fluttered like confetti. I stepped onto the stage, heart swelling with pride, when a voice rang out, "Michelle Edwards is a fraud. She stole this company." In a heartbeat, hundreds turned to see Ashley striding forward, a fat dossier in her trembling hand. "This," she declared, brandishing the file, "proves that Synnet Global's shares were acquired through stolen software and fake shell corporations. Legally, Michelle doesn't own a single share." A hush fell like a guillotine's blade. My pulse thundered. One misstep here, and I'd lose everything, my reputation, my company, the legacy I'd fought so hard to build. The moderator gestured to me. "Ms. Edwards, do you have a response?" I approached the microphone with deliberate calm, pressing the folder in my jacket pocket to steady my hand. "Thank you for coming, Ashley," I began, voice clear. "Because I, too, brought something." With a swift movement, I produced my own file. Recorded phone calls, timestamped emails, and bank transfers, showing how you bribed a former employee to fabricate these documents. I pressed play on a small recorder. Ashley's voice echoed. "If we leak this, it'll ruin her. Doesn't matter if it's fake, by the time she disputes it, the damage is done." Gasps erupted. Board members covered their mouths, the moderator staggered back, white as linen. I turned to Ashley, sorrow and steel mingling in my eyes. "You taught me how to play dirty. I just became better at the game." Security moved in, this time not to eject me, but to drag her away as the audience surged to their feet in applause. I raised my hand for silence. "This company was built on silence, betrayal, and politics," I said, voice trembling with emotion, "but from today forward, it will stand for integrity, transparency, and respect." I left the stage feeling both victorious and hollow. I believed the battle was over. But the next morning, a plain, cream-colored envelope lay on my desk. No return address, only my name and office location penciled on the front, and a gold-embossed seal I hadn't seen in over a decade. Hands shaking, I broke the seal and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. The elegant script read, "Congratulations, Michelle. But be warned, I know who you really are, and I know exactly how to find you." My breath caught. The penmanship was familiar, haunting me with memories I thought long buried. Someone from my past, someone I never imagined would reappear, had just delivered the most dangerous message of all. And in that moment, I realized the true game had only just begun. 3 nights later, the envelope's words still echoed in my mind, "We know who really funded Synnet Global. You're not the only ghost in this story. Let's meet." My heart had stopped cold when I saw the signature at the bottom, Daniel Carter, the man I'd mourned for 15 years, my brilliant but volatile business partner, the one whose car plunged off a bridge with no body ever recovered. If he was alive, then everything I'd built wasn't solely mine. Back when Michelle Roberts and Daniel Carter were nobody but two broke tech nerds coding in a dusty storage unit, Daniel had been the fire to my steel. He craved shortcuts, sell our pioneering encryption code to shadowy investors, rake in fast cash. I'd refused, insisting on building a legitimate product. And then, on a rain-slicked evening, his car had careened off that lonely highway. I'd thought his obsession with shortcuts had killed him. I vowed to press on without him. Now, I followed the letter's instructions to an abandoned warehouse at the city's edge. Midnight air pressed heavy on my skin as I approached the rusted loading bay. Inside, the only light came from a bare bulb swinging overhead, casting long shadows across empty crates and half-forgotten pallets. And there he stood, Daniel Carter, leather jacket thrown casually over one shoulder, the same crooked grin I remembered. His hair was shorter now, peppered with gray, but his eyes gleamed with the same reckless brilliance. "Long time, Michelle," he drawled, stepping from the shadows. My pulse thundered as I realized he'd spoken my old name, the one I'd shed when I left that partnership behind. "I thought you were dead," I managed, clutching my coat to keep my voice steady. He laughed, a low, rueful sound. "You did, didn't you? Watching you commandeer Sinet Global gave me a reason to come back." He reached into his pocket and flicked a tiny flash drive onto my palm. "What's this?" I asked, thumb brushing the cool metal. He leaned in, voice quiet but fierce. "Proof that your shell company was seed-funded through an account I set up, meaning I legally own 49% of Sinet." My stomach twisted. "That's impossible," I whispered. "You were gone. You signed over everything before you disappeared." Daniel's grin widened. "Oh, I signed something," he said, "but you forged the signature. And now I want in, half the profits, half the power, or I leak everything. To the board, the media, your investors." His eyes glittered with triumph. The warehouse walls seemed to close in, the stale air turning thick and oppressive. I'd just clawed back my life from Ashley's betrayal, reclaimed the company they'd stolen from me. But now this ghost from my past threatened to pull the rug out again. I set the drive on an empty crate, took a breath, and met his gaze with calm resolve. "You didn't come back for power," I said softly. "You came back because you're broke. You wouldn't have waited 15 years if you were doing well. That flash drive? It's a bluff." His confidence flickered. "You sure?" he snarled, stepping forward. I reached into my coat and produced a thick folder, the one I'd carried for just such an emergency. "I knew you were alive," I told him, voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "I tracked the offshore account you used to fund Sinet. 6 months ago, I bought it. You used a defunct Maris Carter trust as your proxy. Legally, you own nothing. You're just a ghost." Daniel's face went ash white. The warehouse lights snapped on as my private legal team, silent, efficient, stepped through the loading bay doors. He took a stumbling step back, realization dawning in his bloodshot eyes. "You set me up," he hissed. I shook my head, sorrow knotting my chest. "No, Daniel. I finished the story you tried to erase." They escorted him out into the night, the echo of his boots on the concrete floor resonating like the final hammer blow of a verdict. I stood alone among the crates, chest heaving, tears of relief and grief mingling on my cheeks. All I had left of my old life was that bittersweet quiet and the knowledge that I'd finally laid every ghost to rest. Back at the office the next morning, I chose a place of honor on the wall behind my desk. I hung a framed plaque bearing 2 lines in elegant script. They fired me, but I owned everything they worked for. And when the ghost returned, I buried them too. I stepped back and studied it, feeling the weight of every betrayal, every triumph, every secret betrayed and reclaimed. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating the plaque like a beacon. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that this was more than revenge, it was redemption. And now, with every phantom confronted and every debt finally paid, I could rebuild not just a company, but a life founded on truth, resilience, and the unwavering conviction that no one, not sister, not friend, not ghost, could ever take my story away again.